Okay, this is a juicy one here. We might have some. We're gonna have a little bit of spice on this one here. This is from Nick. Which Zelda game overuses its gimmick? Overuses its gimmick. I have an answer.
Okay.
I think it's Tears of the
Over
Kingdom.
overuse really? What? Why?
I think it's Tears of
You
the
mean like
Kingdom.
the building?
I do. Yeah. And
Aw.
overuses is a harsh word, but like it's a lot of there's a lot of building, and I think that you get auto build far too late in the game, and I think it costs far too much to use, and I think that yeah, I don't know. I think if you I've said this a bunch of times, and I know people hate when I say it, but I'm gonna say it one more time. I think if you really love gameplay, like if gameplay is what you buy a video game for, Tears of the Kingdom was awesome. But if you're kind of like me and you don't really love games like Minecraft and you don't really love games like Stardew where you kind of build things, maintain things, grow things, you're probably not in love with the idea of like constantly building stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not fun. It is fun. I just think it's a little bit too much sometimes. And I think that if
Mhm.
your auto build, you got it right away, and it was just like instant, like you build it right there. It was free. That might help that a little bit. Um, yeah, that'd be my answer. Tears of the Kingdom. I have
Okay.
some other sub answers as well, but what do you got?
My thought would be the DS games if the gimmick is using the stylus to move.
Oh, okay. Well, if that's the gimmick, then yes, that's number one. Clearly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that they have other gimmicks like the flute and the phantom hourglass, etc. But if you really think about it, you only use those items very sparingly in your whole adventure. So
Yeah.
I would say that using the stylus as your mode of, movement is very um it's I think it's a really cool concept, and I think when you're a kid, it's so neat that you can control Link with this little stylus and the fairy, you're drawing the fairy and Link follows it. I think that's really cool. But when you're an adult, you're like, no, I'd rather just move regularly. I already got DS shoulder from this.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's too much. Like if they could have made it more for like puzzle solving and like using the items, that makes a lot of sense. But moving Link just by himself shouldn't have been on with the stylus.
Yeah, like that is so ingrained into the game that I almost didn't even consider that the gimmick. It's just like that's almost like the core gameplay to me, which I don't love. I would almost say the same about the other answer that I was thinking of giving, which was in Wind Waker with all the sailing. I don't know if you
Yeah.
could say like that's the gimmick. I think that's just like a core gameplay feature of the game,
Hmm.
which particularly, of course, in the original, it gets a little tiresome.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have this horrific scene where like you're going up to Windfall Island, you're like, "There's the dock. I'm gonna throw my anchor down and dock ahoy," and you accidentally sail past it a little bit. You're like, "Oh no, I gotta either make a split second decision here. Do I swim? Hopefully, I can make it there in time, or do I like stop, play my flute?" Get the wind to change directions and come back. Like Jesus. So that would be one of my answers too.
Yeah, that's a good one. I did think of Skyward Sword for a moment in the motion controls. I do think that there are points where I'm like,
Sometimes,
this
yeah,
is a little much, but otherwise it's actually like a really cool concept. So that's more like a give or take. Maybe my mood depends. It depends on my mood.
I think with Skyward Sword, because I think everybody listening to this is the question was obviously based around Skyward Sword, right? Like that was
Yeah.
what the feature image was for. I don't agree with Skyward Sword, although I will say the only time where I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, I wish I could just control normally and not do the motion gimmick is when you're flying the Loftwing. But you fly
Okay.
the
Yeah.
Loftwing so infrequently that it's just kind of like whatever. Like it's not a big deal. And in Skyward Sword HD, which is probably the only version I'll ever play of this game again,
Yeah.
you
True.
you don't do that, right?
Mhm.
To compare that, like I think unfortunately a lot of Wii games, like a lot of Wii games had that kind of gimmicky nature to them, and DS games to be fair, where like you would do something. I'm thinking of Metroid Prime 3, where like you grapple something, and you have to like yank it back on your Wiimote, and it's like, come on, just let me
Mhm.
press a button here. I don't want to get up and like start sweating like I'm playing Wii bowling here, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it moving here. We have time for a few more. Let's go. Let's go to this one from Sean, our pal. Sean here. Is a 5 to 6 year gap between each major 3D Zelda game the new standard fans should expect?
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think we should expect that, and I don't think that should happen. This is what I say. This is what I say. I think that that's far too long. I don't think we should ever have to wait for as long in between 3D Zelda games as we did from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom. Now, is if the question is, does it take this long to make a game? The answer is probably yes. But I think if that's what you got to do, then or if that's a scenario and it takes that long to make a game, you need to expand your Zelda department to almost like what they do with Call of Duty, where it's just like there are 3 dedicated studios. I think it's 3. It might be more, but there's 3 dedicated studios that are like one of them is working on a game, one of them's working on the next game, one of them's working on the third game simultaneously. And like the first team releases their game year 1 and immediately starts working on the next game, which comes out year 4. Second team releases their game year 2 and then starts working on the next game, which comes out year 5. Like that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. And if you keep on making these open world games that sell 20, 30 million copies, the cost is not going to be an issue. But like you can't have these periods where like there's no new Zelda games. Like I don't think you can, because like the series is going to cool off, fans are going to lose interest, and I just think that that's like I think that that is the reality. Now you can probably not probably you can like you can take your time between big 3D Zelda games. Like I'm not suggesting that one comes out every single year. That would be overkill. Maybe you sprinkle in some 2D games, some other games. But I do think that there should be a Zelda game that comes out each year. There should be one type of Zelda game, whether it's a remake, whether it's a port, whether it's a side project like Cadence or like Hyrule Warriors. There should be something Legend of Zelda that comes out every single year, and it should not be a 6 year gap ever again between your new big 3D Zelda games. That's too long.
Yeah. I struggle between, I think 6 to 7 years is too long, but I struggle with bringing it down because I immediately think of Pokemon coming out with 2 major games within 3 years, and the Scarlet and Violet, to me personally, and I know not everybody feels this way, was so empty and broken, they could have used another year on that game.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 4 to I'm thinking 4. I think 4 is like the sweet spot between mainline big 3D Zelda games. But I agree with you that in between you should have something smaller come out. I don't need a Zelda game every year, but maybe every 2 years you got a Zelda game coming out, something in the middle to hold you over, and then boom, the big line. And then something in the middle to hold you over, boom, the big line. I think every 2 years for me would be like a good sweet spot. Because there's other games and other stuff that we could play and do.
Yes, of course. I just think to that really, like, you look at the Zelda series in the late 2010s and you look at it now and it's completely different. And I think that that's
True.
a large part of that is because Nintendo made a very focused effort to like consistently release big yearly titles like Ocarina of Time 3D, Wind Waker HD, Hyrule Warriors, Breath of the Wild, like Link's Awakening, all of these games, like it kept on building and building and building and building. And I think that's what we need to do to keep on having the series build up a little bit. Now, yes, like I would say 3 to 4 years max between big open world 3D games. I don't think that that's like unrealistic or unreasonable. But I really do think like you got to plan, like put smaller games in between so that we have Zelda consistently, because like that's what it takes. Like look at Metroid. I always bring up Metroid here, but like that's a series where it's like very hot and cold. Sometimes there's a lot of releases and then there's like 8 years with nothing. So it just like resets back to the very starting point. Whereas like I feel like, and not that Zelda needs to be built up anymore. It's obviously a mega huge franchise, but like just to get it into the upper echelons, of like the Grand Theft Autos or the those types of caliber of series, Pokemon even, like keep it coming, like keep it.
Yeah.
Don't take your foot off the gas.
I would
right?
also struggle with, like, I don't want it to be oversaturated though. Like I don't want it to be the next Marvel, I don't
True.
I want it to be like time and quality and something where I'm anticipating it, and my excitement of anticipate. This was something that we struggled with Tears of the Kingdom. We anticipated it really heavily because 2 years after the release of the Breath of the Wild, we got a trailer and we were like ready. We were like, okay. But then that fizzled because it took so long to get there. And I know about COVID, I know that, but even with COVID, there was another 4 years where it really just fizzled and our anticipation died, you know? So until like the last 6 months. So I don't want it to be too long that our anticipation dies, but I don't want it to be too close together like Marvel, where I'm like, oh my god, there's another Marvel thing. Did I even watch the last Marvel? I don't know, you know?
To be fair, I see your comparison, and I think that's a good one. But I do think there's a few key differences there. Number one is like Marvel puts out like multiple things each year, and now it's like there's movies and streaming and blah blah blah, whatever. And number two, I think that until I'm proven wrong, or like until they disappoint me, the track record of quality in Zelda is really like undisputed.
It's good, and I want them to stay that way. I'm just saying I don't want them to be pushing out Zelda
I see
content,
what you're saying. Yeah.
You know.
I think that those things can be true though, and I say that because like they've done it. Like they had the yearly release for almost a decade, and it was awesome. Everything was awesome. So I think that there's room to keep on doing that. So great question, Sean. We'll see. You know what? It probably is going to be another couple of years until the next open world Zelda game. Although I would suggest that they better get on it and better have it ready for the Switch 2 sooner rather than later. Okay, let's go to a question from Maddie McRae. And Maddie asks, what would a turn-based Zelda game look like?
Ooh.
You know, I just bought... So I'm too poor to buy a PlayStation 5 right now. And I was like,
okay.
Damn, I want to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I was like, looks like Final Fantasy VII's on sale for $8 on the Nintendo Switch. So I started playing that game the other day, and I have a few thoughts here. I think you keep it nice and simple, nice and clean. Maybe get like a, not turn-based, but like just kind of do almost like Sea of Stars did with, it's like a really nice blend, very Chrono Trigger-esque of like classical, like there's a lot of classic feeling JRPG stuff there, but also some modern, I was about to say modernicity. That's definitely not a word. Modernity? Modernist? Whatever the word is. Whatever that word is, that's what it needs. And I always thought that it would be really, really cool to like have an RPG with like Zelda as like your main character, and like have your sages be like your party members, because then you can do all like the cool magic and like different, you know, like that just screams to me like, hey, this is like tailor made for like a party, an RPG party. So yeah, I think like look at Chrono Trigger, look at Sea of Stars. Maybe if you want to get some, like, I think what I would not do is make it like a modern-ish RPG, like Mass Effect, or like Baldur's Gate for that matter. Like, I think you want to keep it a little bit more classical to me.
I think that I haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII, but I think that this game that I'm thinking of was heavily inspired by it. If I'm remembering, I'm pretty sure it came out after. Legend of Dragoon. I think if you could do like a Legend of Dragoon style where you walk around as your protagonist, you know, and you have some story elements, you meet some characters along the way, you can pick them to who's going to be in your party. They have different skills, obviously, and if you're going against a beast that you know, like your dark magic user is going to be better against them, then you'll pick that person and you level them up, etc. Like, I think a Legend of Dragoon style turn-based game would be perfect for Zelda.
I love it. Yeah, I love Legend of Dragoon. That was a sweet game.
I love that game. Oh no, it's not on the Switch. Never mind, it's on the PS5.
No, yeah, it's. I'm pretty sure I saw it on the PlayStation Store, but I wish it was on Switch because I'd get it. But for what it's worth, I'm having a heck of a time playing the OG Final Fantasy. It's been a few years, so all that came rushing back, and I was like, it's Tifa, and it's that song, or there's Barrett. Like, so I'm having a great time.
Love it.
Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.